people. Let's continue. Well, David has in his introduction something about the QBasic. I'm not sure in the audience who worked with the QBasic as well in the past. Well, that's not too much. Well, I'm not that old myself yet, but I guess I'm also one of the latest people using it. But so it was nice to see it back again. Well, I'm interested in Foreman myself, so yeah, let's see what you can educate us, and thanks. Good luck.
Thank you. So this is my first time presenting actually at a conference, so I apologize if I'm a little bit nervous or what have you. Actually I don't use QBasic anymore. I moved on to Fortran and COBOL. So very advanced. Okay, so my name is David Davis. I'm a software developer. I work at Red Hat. I work on the Foreman team. Just out of curiosity, how many of you all know what Foreman is or use Foreman? Oh wow, a lot more than I expected. Half of my talk is based on explaining Foreman, so I'll try to breeze through that now. And I assume most of you guys know what Docker is, right? Okay, cool. All right, so just some companies that use Foreman to give you an idea of who's using it. You might recognize some of these companies, maybe not. But so to kind of give you an idea of why someone will use Foreman, basically, let's say you're switching to Docker. Chances are some of your infrastructure is still based on some type of virtualization technology, like libvirt, or maybe you're using EC2 or something like that. So chances are you're using sort of a mixed infrastructure, and it's kind of a pain to use all these different APIs. You have to code against EC2 or Docker, the Docker API. And what Foreman does is it kind of centralizes this. It's built for managing systems, as you probably know. You can manage configurations as well with Foreman. And of course you can manage physical hosts, virtual hosts. And now with Foreman Docker, which we've put together, you can manage containers. So depending on how you have pre-configured your systems, it can be a slow process. It can also be frustrating working with different APIs and trying to configure everything correctly. So you're probably used to this in terms of configuring systems and tweaking the configurations to try to get it working right. So, yeah. But you'd rather be doing more programming or what have you. So Foreman allows you to focus on your infrastructure, not on the different types of tools you're using. You don't have to worry about EC2 or Docker and stuff like that. It kind of abstracts that away. So how does it do it? Well, it uses several different technologies. Catello is kind of a new one. It was a separate application. That's that one right there. But now it's an actual Foreman plugin. About a year ago, we rewrote it as a Foreman plugin. It basically gives you extra control on managing content. So you can manage packages, Puppet modules, Docker images, stuff like that. And then Pulp does the heavy lifting for Catello. That's a project you can use via Catello. And again, there's tons of APIs out there that Foreman supports. One of the great things about Foreman, of course, is that it's open source. I think that's one of its strengths. We have a lot of people that contribute to it. We have a great community. We have tons of plugins, which make Foreman really great. And I don't think we'd have that, I guess, if it was a proprietary product. I think one of its core advantages is the fact that it's open source. So yeah, with all these different providers, you have different problems, and the goal of Foreman really is to abstract it away and give you sort of a standard API by which you can access these providers. Okay, so Foreman has a REST API that you can directly hit. It's powerful. It's well documented. I use documentation all the time, and I use the API all the time, either with curl or HTTP py or what have you. So it has a great JSON API, and with Docker, you also get that API. You can use the API against Docker if you have the Foreman Docker plugin. And with the API, we also have a CLI, so you can run it from the command line. You can run commands to provision and stuff like that. So if you're like me, you prefer using the command line as opposed to the web interface. Also, it takes care of a lot of different types of provisioning. I won't spend too much time on that, but yeah, also we've started integrating Docker files, so you can manage that from within Foreman. And then the way it does this is with configuration templates. And then another advantage of Foreman is the RBAC, the role-based access control. So if you have organizations or departments within your organization, if you have different users that have different roles, you can give them different permissions. And of course, this also extends out to, so here's sort of the format. You have a resource and then a permission. And this extends out to containers as well when you're using Foreman Docker. So you can view containers, that's one permission. And then you can create containers as well. You can also set these permissions on individual containers and stuff like that. It's a very powerful access control. And then another thing, besides departments, you can create departments within Foreman. It's multi-tenant, but also you can have locations. So it's another way to organize some of your data. Like if you have an office in Spain or office in France, then you can set permissions that way as well. And of course, there are reports. You can see, what hosts you have, how they're running, and stuff like that. And also, of course, this extends out to containers as well. You can see what containers are running. You can run operations against those containers. You can see their status, their logs, and stuff like that without having to leave Foreman. Okay, so you really came here for Docker. You want to see the code. Before that, really quick, as the last presenter mentioned, security is a big problem. Typically, you search for a package, or in this case, a Docker image. You'll download the Docker image or Docker pull it, and then you'll run it. What could go wrong? I read an article the other day on Hacker News. I don't know if it was completely true, but it said something like a third of the official images had security vulnerabilities in DrHub. But I think it was a little bit inflated, what I read a little bit. But I imagine some of the images do have security vulnerabilities. So, but Docker helps. You can have private registries. You can even set up, Foreman helps. You can even set up Foreman as a private registry. You can run operations against containers, and it provides monitoring. And so, demo time. All right. And I recorded this yesterday. I didn't want to actually do it live because I always mistype and hit an error. Okay, so this is just Foreman running from master. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just provision a container from DrHub, and it's actually a Foreman container. So I'm going to run Foreman inside of Foreman, basically. So first I just log in. Now I'm going to go to the containers menu and hit new container. And now here I can set, or I can use a different compute resource. And you probably know what a compute resource is, but basically it's like a provider instance. Here I just have a local Docker installed on this box that I'm using. So I just installed Docker and then pointed it to that. And this tab, the content view tab you get with Catello, by default if you're just using Foreman, it's not there. But you can provision content out of Foreman or Catello, and you can organize your Docker images and stuff like that, and basically create containers from them. Also, you can use external registries. If you have like a private registry that your company is using of Docker images, you can use that. But for this one, I'm just going to use DrHub. Okay, so I'm just going to type in where the container is, where the image is in DrHub. It's a Foreman image. Search. Use that one. It only has latest tags, so I'm going to use that. And then I have some of the same options I would have if I was going to Docker run the image. I come up with the name. For the command, I have to run Rails server to get Foreman running. It's a Rails app. I'm running on port 8080 because this Foreman is already running on port 3000. And some other options. Run that. More options. I need to expose port 8080. I'm going to run it as soon as I create the container. And as soon as that is done, I should have Foreman up and running inside a Docker container. If I click on the logs, maybe, is that right there next? Okay, well here's some information you can see. You can see port 8080 is exposed. And here you can see the logs, and it's booting WebBrick, which Rails uses as the default web server. And if I actually go to port 8080, I've got Foreman. So that's how easy it is with Foreman to create a new container. Also, I wanted to show you a little bit about Catello. Catello is what we use for content management. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull some images into Catello, show you how that works. Okay, so this is Foreman with Catello running. This is a screen inside Catello. I can look at products. What I'm basically going to do is create a Docker repo. So this is essentially like mirroring DrHub into Foreman, mirroring the images. I'm just going to call this NLUUG. It's true, right? And then I'm just going to create a repository. I usually use Busybox for testing, so I'm just going to use that. I could also use like a you can manage all kinds of content in Catello, but I'm managing a Docker repo, so I select Docker. I'm just going to go over to the hub and grab the registry URL and then the name of the repo, Docker repo. There's Busybox. Now when I save it, it'll be empty. In order to get the actual images and tags from DrHub, I just need to sync it. And now it's going to just pull the images and tags. You can set up stuff like sync plans if you want to sync it like every day in case there's new images and stuff like that, and you can do that. Synced. Now I should have some images, 9 images, 5 tags. Busybox. Another way right now to get, you can upload content into Foreman as well. And I'm actually going to switch to the CLI so you guys can see that. Because the CLI provides all the functionality that the API and Web UI does. And so here's my images. I have it's kind of cut off, but I have an NLUUG image. I just want to upload that into Foreman. So first what I need to do is just Docker save it to a file, and it creates a tar file with the layers and the tag. You just can grab, it's automatically going to grab the latest tag. And now Hammer is the CLI for Foreman. And so first I'm going to create a repository to store this Docker image. Here you can see it's empty. It has 0 Docker images and 0 Docker tags. And now I'm just going to upload the file that I created. And now you can see it has 2 images. I think there were 2 layers in there, which is why it has 2 images. It has the 1 tag, which is latest. So now that I've shown you 2 ways, also one day, or hopefully we want to support DrPush, so you can DrPush directly into Foreman as well. I think that would be really nice. Right now you just have to upload it like that. But now that I have the images in Foreman, you're probably wondering, well, what do I do with them? Well, like I said, you can use Foreman as a private registry. If I go to the Docker tags page, I can see all the tags within Foreman. And so if I wanted to, let's say, pull one of these, like maybe Busybox latest, I can just grab the URL and Docker pull it. I can create a container from that after I've done that. I forgot to actually give it a command, so it's just going to run for like a second and then shut down. Here you can see at the top one, it ran for 1 second and then exited. So it didn't do anything special. But if you have like a server cluster, you probably don't want to do this. I mean, you don't want to talk to each server and say Docker pull this, Docker pull this. So what you can also do is provision out of Foreman as well, like I did earlier. But this time, instead of using a DrHub image, I'm just going to use one within the application. And also I'm going to do it from the CLI now instead of the web UI. So I just use Hammer. I'm going to say DrCreate. Actually, I made a mistake here. It's supposed to be DrContainer create, so I'm going to have to run it again. But so I'm creating one awesome NLUUG. I'm going to use a repository name, separate out the tag. I might only have 1 compute resource, so I'm going to use that. And I will give it a command top so that it won't die instantly. You can see here I made a mistake. So if I had done this live, I would have made 10. Okay. Docker container create. So the container is created. If I do Docker ps-a, actually I don't need a -a because it's top and it's just running. So that's how I provision a container out of Foreman. So some other things I wanted to just cover in general, and I think this is maybe helpful even if you aren't using Foreman. Let me see the slide. Okay, so I want to talk about the future of both Foreman and Docker, because right now one of the things that I think Docker was supposed to deliver on, but hasn't really yet, has been the promise that it can replace virtual machines. And so I still think it's kind of a ways away. At least we're not able to run different plugins. We got Foreman running in container, but we don't have different plugins that depend on other processes to run in a container. So we're either trying to look at maybe a machine container with multiple processes, or just split them up and use something like, I guess, Fig or whatever it's called now to orchestrate a setup. Because honestly, I would like to use Docker in development, but it's quite hard if you have dependencies that don't run very well in Docker. And last I heard, they were still, I don't know if this is still the case, but I remember like 6 months ago, I was trying to run systemd, which of course does not, yeah, I don't know, it's a different issue. But so also the future for Foreman, it's kind of separate right now, the Docker and virtualization, and I'm hoping we could standardize it more. One thing we're hoping to do is add image building. We're actually working on this. And here's a quick preview. So I have images within Foreman. And then what I can do is supply a Git URL with a Docker file. So I have a repo with a Docker file. And then I can actually grab content out of Catello. Or actually, next thing I would do is select a base image. And this is just an image that I'm going to build on top of. And then I can actually grab content out of Catello to use in the image. So in a sense, I can create my own images, which should kind of give an entire workflow where you don't really have to leave Foreman in order to use Docker. Also right now we're working on Atomic support. So we're hoping, we support CoreOS, you can provision it now. We're also hoping to allow people to not only provision Atomic, but also begin to associate Docker containers with Atomic setups, and also CoreOS. And then again, I mentioned earlier, it would be nice to support DrPush so that you can just DrPush directly into Foreman your images. This is not something we have officially on the roadmap. But it would be nice to also support Kubernetes. I think that's a great way to use Docker and stuff like that. But so to kind of build on that, we have a really great community in Foreman. A lot of people have contributed to it. And we have a Freenode channel. And we also have a great website with documentation and stuff like that. We have Google Groups, Foreman users for people who use Foreman and need help, and then Foreman Dev for developers. And here are the Freenode channels. That's the user channel, and then the development channel. And also we're on GitHub. All our code's on GitHub, so you can see it and use it. We have tons of plugins for stuff like Chef, Salt, stuff like that. And a lot of them are official and they're under the Foreman name, but some of them aren't. And lastly, this is the URL for my GitHub profile. It also has my email address if you have any questions. But were there any questions about the presentation?
If I go to foreman.org and I download Foreman, I get just Foreman. If I go to catello.org, I get a combination of the two. Is that correct? Is that the place to go for the latest version?
That's correct. So right now we're working on, like with Foreman plugins, you install them after you install Foreman, but Catello is a little bit different because it has Pulp and Candlepin and stuff like that. So you actually have to, right now, go to catello.org and use the Catello installer. But we're working right now on allowing people to install Catello after they've installed Foreman. And so you might just want to watch Catello, or you can email the list and maybe we can give you a status update over time. But yeah, we're working on that. We just started integrating Catello as a Foreman plugin about a few months ago, or about a year ago, I guess, now. So, yeah.
Any other questions? Can you tell a little bit about how you started with Foreman and what you do on a daily basis?
Okay, sure, yeah. So I started with Foreman. Actually, started within the Cloud Forms department at Red Hat. Started working on Cloud Forms, System Engine, worked a little bit on Catello, and then about a year ago, started working on Foreman. I've been programming Ruby though for probably about 10 years now, or 8 years. So I come from a developer background, but I've been learning a lot about, actually Docker was one of the first things that got me into system administration, because I'd used Vagrant for quite a while, and I was eager to use like Vagrant Docker or Docker for development. So I started getting into system administration a couple of years ago. And you know, on a daily basis, I'm mostly writing Ruby code. And right now I'm working on, or I just worked on Docker, but now I'm working on supporting Atomic from Foreman. So that's what I'm currently working on.
And in your spare time, any programming?
Yeah, I like to program a lot. I especially, some of my favorite, I've worked on a lot of different open source projects, a lot of stuff with Clojure. I don't know if you know foreclosure.com. It's a great site if you want to learn Clojure. But I love working on open source projects. I also worked on Robocop, which is like a Ruby linter. It's open source and it's great because like Python has a linting tool that comes with the language, but Ruby doesn't. So some people got together and a community formed around Robocop. It's a really great Ruby linter. But this was one of the projects I worked on. It's open source, you can work on it. And it's just basically solving problems in Clojure. So if you're using Puppet, maybe you want to learn some Clojure. This is a great way to do that. So.
Actually, that's quite interesting, because that actually runs your Clojure code in a Sandbox. So what do you use for Sandbox?
So I didn't work too much on the Sandbox. Some of the other guys did that. They also have the same, I think it's called like Clojure Jail or something, but they're also using it for TriClojure. Maybe it's TriClojure. TriClojure. It's the same Sandbox. I think it's called like Clojure Jail or something. Clojure Sandbox, maybe? I think this is it. David Byrne is actually the guy who started Foreclosure. I actually made a Ruby site that's kind of similar to Foreclosure. And this launches a separate process. This was made like a few years ago before Docker and stuff like that. Right now it just launches a separate process. And so we've had a number of people who have managed to bring down the site, so it's always been quite interesting. As a matter of fact, there's another Ruby site.
But how do you limit it? You just like say, okay, the process can only run for a couple of seconds and you can only make certain calls. What do you do?
Yeah, it's like, so I used a Sandbox that existed in Ruby, and it's like a trimmed down version of Ruby. It also does some parsing of the syntax to see, what's being called. Like you can't call system methods and stuff like that. So, yeah. But I've actually managed, there's another Ruby site too that's actually quite well known. And we brought it down, trying to, because we had a bug, and we tried it against Try Ruby, and we brought that down as well. So it looked like they had the same bug. But, yeah. Cool.
Okay, no other questions? Then we have early coffee break.
Thank you.